For 13 minutes on Thursday evening, nobody at Mission Control could hear a word from the crew. The radio had gone dark. Because when you're coming home from the moon, the atmosphere turns to fire around you, and fire doesn't let signals through. The heat shield had a known problem. Engineers spotted it before launch. They flew anyway. You're listening to Stardrift FM. Tonight, one story. 4 astronauts just came home from the moon. The first humans to travel to the lunar vicinity in 53 years are back on Earth, standing in Houston, healthy. What happened in those final hours? What did the heat shield actually do? And what does a successful Artemis II mean for the road back to the lunar surface? Grab your coffee, let's get into it. The mission had been running for 9 days, 1 hour and 32 minutes. 4 people, Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen, had flown further from Earth than any human since Apollo 13 in 1970. They'd looped around the far side of the moon. They'd floated above craters no one had looked down on in over half a century. And now it was time to come home. The return burns were almost anticlimactic. 3 small engine firings across 3 days, 15 seconds, 9 seconds, 8 seconds, each one nudging Orion onto the correct path. The third burn was so precise, they barely needed it. Flight controllers said the spacecraft was almost flying itself home. Before re-entry, the European service module, the bus that had powered the crew across almost 700,000 miles of space, had to be cut loose. It would burn up on the way down, expendable by design. Airbus built it. The atmosphere would claim it. The crew suited up, Orion aligned, and then, 13 minutes before splashdown, they hit the atmosphere at 24,661 miles per hour. 35 times the speed of sound. Here's what 13 minutes looks like from inside that capsule. The moment you hit 400,000 feet, the air pushes back hard. The ablative heat shield, the only barrier between the crew and 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, begins its controlled sacrifice. It vaporizes layer by layer, carrying heat away from the capsule. It's been doing its job since the Apollo era. The material is called avcoat. It works by burning so the crew doesn't have to. Heat d-force during deceleration 3.9. Nearly 4 times body weight, pressing the crew into their seats, sustained not a split second. For people who had been floating in zero gravity for 9 days, this hits differently. At some point during those 13 minutes, radio contact ends. This is planned. When plasma forms around a re-entering capsule, it blocks every frequency. Mission Control goes silent. 6 minutes of nothing but the telemetry numbers ticking down, and faith in the engineers who built the thing. Then parachutes. Drogue chutes at 23,400 feet, 3 main canopies at 5,400 feet, each one as wide as a city intersection. Orion slows from Mach 32 to 20 miles per hour in just over 12 minutes. 5:07 p.m. Pacific time, a bullseye. The USS John P. Murtha, waiting 2,000 yards away, tracked the capsule down. 4 crew green, Wiseman radioed immediately, all 4 alive, home. 252,756 miles from Earth, the new human distance record set by 4 people who came home yesterday. The USS John P. Murtha had been waiting 2,000 yards from the targeted landing zone. Navy divers hit the water immediately, not to extract the crew, but to photograph the heat shield while it was still floating. That data was already too important to wait. The crew stayed inside Orion for about 90 minutes, floating in the Pacific in their orange pressure suits. 24 hours earlier, the moon had been out their window. One by one, they were hoisted up by helicopter. Taken aboard the Murtha. The ship returned to Naval Base San Diego the following morning, and the crew flew to Houston. They all walked on stage. Wiseman: I have absolutely no idea what to say. 24 hours ago, the Earth was out the window and we were doing Mach 39, and here we are back at Ellington at home. Victor, Christina, and Jeremy. We are bonded forever, and no one down here will ever know what the 4 of us just went through. Victor Glover, the gratitude of seeing what we saw, doing what we did, and being with who I was with, it's too big to just be in one body. Christina Koch asked for one word to describe the journey: humility. And NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman, after a brief 53-year intermission, the show goes on. Before the return, before the re-entry, before the parachutes, there was something else. 6 days into the mission, Orion reached its closest approach to the moon, 4,067 miles above the far side. For 40 minutes, the spacecraft dipped behind the lunar disk. No radio, no Earth in the window, just 4 humans, a capsule, and the silence of the far side. And then, a solar eclipse that lasted 57 minutes. On Earth, total solar eclipses last at most 7.5 minutes. From Orion's position in cislunar space, the moon was large enough to blot the sun completely for nearly an hour. The crew watched the sun's corona blazing in a halo around the lunar disk. Venus, Mars, Saturn, Mercury, all of them visible at once in the same frame. 5 separate micrometeoroid impacts lit up the lunar surface in the reflected glow. Wiseman, live from inside the capsule. It is absolutely spectacular, surreal. I'm gonna need to invent some new adjectives. But there was one moment, quieter than the eclipse, smaller than the record, that will probably stay with this crew longest. Jeremy Hansen pointed to a bright impact crater near the boundary of the near and far sides and radioed mission control. It's a bright spot on the moon, and we would like to call it Carol, named for Reed Wiseman's late wife, Carol, who passed away from cancer in 2020. The crew embraced in zero gravity. Wiseman called it a total treasure. Here's the question the whole program is waiting on. The heat shield. After Artemis the 2022, NASA found over 100 locations where the Avcoat ablative material had cracked and spalled. Chunks breaking off during re-entry due to pressure building up inside material that wasn't porous enough to vent properly. The root cause took 2 years to identify. For Artemis II, there wasn't time to rebuild the heat shield, so instead, NASA changed the flight profile. Steeper angle, faster entry, less thermal cycling. A workaround, not a fix. Did it work? Navy divers photographed the shield the moment it hit the water. 2 heat shield specialists were on the Mirtha waiting to inspect it. The capsule is now heading to Kennedy Space Center for CT scanning. NASA's official word, the vehicle performed exactly as envisioned. But the full spallation data won't be public for about a month. That data matters because what happens next is not what most people expected. Artemis III, scheduled for mid-27, will not attempt a lunar landing. The program was restructured in February. Artemis III will launch on SLS, rendezvous with the commercial human landing system vehicles in Earth orbit, test the docking, test the suits, prove the integrated stack works before anyone commits to the surface. The first crewed lunar landing is now Artemis IV, 2028. The Artemis III crew announcement is coming soon, per Flight Director Rick Henfling. And somewhere up there, near the boundary between the near and far sides of the moon, there's a crater that didn't have a name 9 days ago. It does now. Artemis II launched April 1st. 9 days, 1 hour, and 32 minutes later, 4 people came home from the moon. The heat shield held, the records fell, and the crew said things, standing in Houston, barely 24 hours removed from cislunar space, that the rest of us will be quoting for years. This is Stardrift FM. Thanks for tuning in.